Today in Roach Reflections I want to talk about exploring new swims. In this lockdown I'm restricted to my local stretch of the Dorset Stour, which isn't very far away, and that gives me a mile or so of river to fish, and fortunately for me that's a deep slow stretch that can take a lot of extra water. We've had quite a lot of floods this winter and sometimes it's unfishable or not worth fishing when it's really high and over the banks, but at least I've been able to get out to fish when it's not too bad, fairly high, and certainly elsewhere it would have been unfishable. Down on Throop Fishery for instance it's been extremely high, but I haven't been near the place. Haven't been out on the really cold days either. I just stick to the fairly mild days when conditions are reasonably favourable, and I've been doing well on the roach. I've been doing my quest for a big Stour roach a few times this winter, and one thing that's come to mind is that I've been fishing the same old swims, and those same old swims have become popular. People watching my videos think they must have to go to those swims to catch roach, which is far from the whole story. The stretch I'm fishing did at one time have something like 60 swims on both banks. Part of the bank, the north bank from Wimborne Bypass upstream, was always owned by, it was always known as UDC water, Wimborne Urban District Council water, and it's still owned by the council but no longer leased to the Wimborne Club. Exactly what the status is of the fishing on there I don't know, but people can fish it. I think at one time they thought about day tickets, but that never really happened. As a result, over the years quite a few swims have got grown in, trees have sprung up out of nowhere, so the riverbank compared to 40 years ago is very different. There are more trees. Whether those trees were cut down in the past I don't know. There's a few swims that could do with opening out with a chainsaw here and there on both that UDC water and the Wimborne Club water. A few bits where a few branches lopping off wouldn't be a bad thing either. But as I say, on my quest for a big roach I've been fishing a handful of swims near the bridge, which people think are the only ones, but other locals who fish it a lot fish other swims down towards Camford Boathouse, and there are some big roach down there. I'm much less bothered at the moment about catching a big bag of roach. I don't use a keep net, and as far as a video is concerned I'd rather catch one or two really good roach, fish over a pound, than 30 pounds of 5-6 ounce roach. Not that that's going to happen very much this winter. The cormorants are really taking their toll on this water and many others, and where the cormorant prevention, shall we say, has been suspended the last 2 or 3 years, the roach numbers seem to be dropping, which is worrying at the moment. This has happened before, and the roach have come back when the cormorants are dissuaded from feeding on the river. Anyway, to say what I want to say, which is that I've started to explore new swims. I've decided that fishing those same old swims is boring for you, the viewer, to watch, and I'm going to try areas of the river that I haven't fished for anything up to well over 30 years. I looked through my fishing diaries and I found one area I'd fished. I thought I'd last fished it in 84 and it turned out it was 86 as well. I fished another match along the same bit, and back then it was dace or nothing. Did get the odd bleak, but basically the roach seemed to be very concentrated in what was well known as the Roach Bay, which was from the bypass down through half a dozen swims. Over the years the roach have spread out a lot more. In the summer when I've walked along there and the water's pretty much stationary then, very, very weedy, I've spotted roach all the way from above Canford Bridge all the way down through. So in the summer the roach are certainly spread out. In the winter they're concentrated in certain areas. But the big question for me was, could I find roach in new areas, in areas that are certainly fishable, not as easy to fish as the very popular swims, but would perseverance pay off? And that's what I'm going to try and find out over the next couple of weeks before the end of the season. Whether we'll get the rowers from Camford School back on after the 8th of March when the schools supposedly go back, I have no idea. Camford School might know that. But it's certainly been a very quiet river this winter. We've had the odd canoeist on there, and that's about it, as opposed to anyone who's been on there on a full day when they're rowing on there with the single sculls, doubles, 8s, 4s and everything else, knows it can be pretty hectic and disruptive from the anglers' peace and quiet, but the roach don't mind because the cormorants are driven off there. They simply can't feed when all those boats are going up and down. So I'm getting adventurous in the swims, and this is something I've always done with my fishing. I've always gone to stretches on a sort of off chance of finding fish. I just try to read the water, look for swims that might be promising and fish them, and I don't worry too much if I don't catch a lot. I tend to travel quite light. At the moment I'm a little bit more bogged down than I used to be because I carry a couple of cameras and a couple of lightweight tripods, and maybe when the conditions are better and go somewhere quieter, I carry some better audio gear as well. Anywhere near Wintle bypass is very noisy, but there are places in the countryside where there's some tremendous background sounds of the birds, etc. But yeah, be prepared to try different swims. It's a challenge to see what's there, and I think sometimes with these different swims you don't expect an instant response. You can have to fish for half an hour or an hour before you get a bite. So far I've fished something like 4 or 5 different swims. You've seen the result of one of those changes where I caught a very nice dace, and we'll see what happens with the next quest for a big stale roach. It's easy to get in a rut with these swims, fishing the same swim over and over again. I think this happens to lots of anglers on lots of waters, whether it's the local commercial, oh, I always fish peg 12 or whatever, and people get so fixated by a certain swim, same float, same everything, they forget that there might be fish elsewhere. And of course, swims that get fished a lot, although they may produce, can get too hammered. In other words, the fish just switch off. They either move elsewhere or they just won't feed very well because they've had so much bait going in, been caught too many times, been in too many keep nets. So one advantage of these quiet swims is the fish probably haven't been hammered, and there's always a chance of a big one lurking somewhere, and that's what I'm hoping. Can I catch a 2-pounder before the end of the season? Probably not, but I'm going to try and give it a go. Hope you've enjoyed my thoughts again on roach. Please subscribe if you like this video or my other videos. There's plenty more to come, and it's goodbye for now.